Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
The Toronto Blue Jays roster might look complete on paper, but there's one glaring hole that nobody's talking about enough, and it could cost them a playoff spot if they don't address it before opening day. We're diving deep into potential trade targets, why the obvious moves might not make sense, and the under-the-radar acquisition that could actually push this team over the top. Happy February, everyone! Baseball is officially back, and spring training is right around the corner. The Blue Jays have had a solid offseason, bringing in Roki Sasaki, locking down Anthony Santander, and building what looks like a legitimate contender. But as we get closer to the season, the big question is, do they have any moves left? Are we going to see another trade before they break camp? And more importantly, should we expect one? Let's start by looking at where this roster actually stands right now. You've got Vlad Jr. at first, Bo Bichette at short, Ernie Clement filling in at second, and Spencer Horwitz at third. The outfield is Santander, George Springer, and Addison Barger, rotating with Kevin Kiermaier. Tyler Heineman and Alejandro Kirk splitting time behind the plate. Andres Gimenez providing elite defense, even if the bat isn't quite there yet. When you look at the lineup top to bottom, there really aren't many obvious holes. Almost every position has a player projected for over 2 WAR, which is legitimately impressive depth. That's why when people start throwing around names like Steven Kwan from the Cleveland Guardians, you have to pump the brakes a little bit. Yes, Kwan is an excellent player. Last year, he put up 3.7 WAR despite having just a 96 OPSIA+, which shows how much value he brings with his defense and base running. He's basically a better version of Andres Gimenez with a bit more offensive upside. Elite defense in center field, incredible on the bases, and a solid contact hitter who can get on base. If you could plug him into this lineup, would he make the team better? Absolutely. But here's the problem. What would it actually cost to get Steven Kwan? Cleveland was flirting with trading him at the deadline last year, and they're going to want significant value back. We're talking about a guy with team control through next season, a proven contributor, and someone who fits exactly what championship teams need. If you're the Guardians, you're asking for someone like Trey Savage or a package headlined by a top prospect like Arjun Nimala. Are the Blue Jays willing to give up that kind of talent right now when their roster is already this deep? And then there's the playing time issue. If you bring in Steven Kwan, someone has to lose at bats. Is it Addison Barger, who showed real promise last year and deserves everyday playing time? Is it Anthony Santander, who you just signed and is locked into a role? You start creating log jams that don't necessarily need to exist, especially when Kwan isn't Kyle Tucker. If Tucker had been available, you make that trade in a heartbeat because he's an MVP caliber player. Kwan is very good, but he's not that level of game changer where you sacrifice prospects and playing time flexibility. So if the Blue Jays aren't making a big splash position player trade, where should they actually be looking? The bullpen. Specifically, left-handed relief. That's been the consistent weak point all offseason, and it's still not adequately addressed. Genesis Cabrera is solid but limited. Brendan Little showed serious fatigue and performance issues in the second half last year. Eric Swanson barely got used. This team needs another lefty arm with real leverage capability, and there's a name out there that makes a ton of sense. Jojo Romero from the St. Louis Cardinals. Romero put up a 2.07 ERA last year with a 1.2 whip, and here's the key detail. He's a free agent after this season. The Cardinals are in full teardown mode. They've already traded Nolan Arenado, they're shopping everyone who isn't nailed down, and Romero is exactly the kind of one-year rental they need to move for value before they lose him for nothing. He throws from a unique 31-degree arm slot from the left side, which gives him deception and makes him particularly tough on lefties. He's not going to cost a top prospect because he's a reliever with 1 year of control, but he could absolutely be the difference in high-leverage October situations. If the Blue Jays called up St. Louis and offered someone like Yohendrick Pinango or another mid-tier prospect, that's a deal that makes sense for both sides. Toronto gets a proven bullpen arm who immediately slides into a meaningful role. St. Louis gets a young player with upside to add to their rebuild. And here's the best part. It doesn't create any roster complications. You bring in Romero, and suddenly Tommy Nance or one of the other fringe relievers who's out of options becomes expendable. It's clean, it's logical, and it fills a need without disrupting what's already working. This is the type of move that doesn't generate massive headlines, but wins you games in September and October. You're not trading away your future for a marginal upgrade at a position where you're already solid. You're addressing a legitimate weakness with a cost-effective solution that doesn't block any of your young talent or create uncomfortable roster decisions. The Blue Jays are in win-now mode, but that doesn't mean you have to make desperate moves that mortgage the future. Smart teams make calculated additions that genuinely move the needle. Could there be other options out there? Sure. The Cardinals also have Lars Nootbaar, who some people have mentioned as a potential fit. But again, does he move the needle enough over Addison Barger to justify giving up real prospect capital? Probably not right now. Maybe at the trade deadline if injuries hit or performance issues arise, but not in February when the roster is healthy and the depth looks solid. The reality is that this Blue Jays team is in a really good position. The rotation is deep and talented. The lineup has power, on-base ability, and speed. The defense is strong up the middle. The one area where they could use reinforcement is left-handed bullpen depth. And someone like Jojo Romero checks that box without costing an arm and a leg. That's the move that makes sense. That's the trade that helps this team without creating problems elsewhere. If Ross Atkins is going to pull the trigger on anything before opening day, that's where the focus should be.